Recently, a network of telescopes known as pan-stars detected an unusual event that once again brought the name of the renowned astrophysicist Abel Löb to the forefront. This scientist, who had long remained in the shadows, found himself back in the spotlight of the global scientific community thanks to a discovery that could alter our understanding of interstellar objects. The science community received confirmation of the existence of a third interstellar visitor, which apparently silently crossed the boundaries of our solar system and headed into the uncharted depths of space. This mysterious object was named Trei and Atlas, and seemingly, it was no different from many other icy bodies scattered across interstellar space. It appeared to be just another stone lost among the myriad stars, similar to those occasionally captured in astronomers' fields of view. However, it was precisely the calculations performed by Löb, a professor at Harvard University and one of the leading specialists in modern astrophysics, that led to a sensational shift in the perception of this object. Based on their joint research, which utilized new mathematical models and data analysis published in a peer-reviewed preliminary report, an astonishing statement was made. Trei and Atlas appears to be an internally hollow object. This claim shocked the entire academic community because such structures are extremely rare in space and contradict established notions about the nature of interstellar bodies. The size of this body, with a mass exceeding 33 billion tons, already causes bewilderment. According to new hypotheses, it could contain emptiness inside, which completely overturns traditional ideas about similar objects. In modern physics, it is generally assumed that interstellar bodies are dense clusters of stones and ice compressed by gravity, collisions, and long cosmic timescales. The idea of a giant composed of hollow shells capable of withstanding radiation, tidal forces, and impacts from micrometeoroids seems incredible and practically impossible. Yet, facts and calculations leave no other choice but to accept its validity. Of particular interest is the fact that an object over 10 kilometers in diameter passed within just 29 million kilometers of Mars, close enough for its gravitational influence to be noticed and recorded. However, all measurement instruments registered a complete absence of any disturbances. Not the slightest deviation in the orbits of nearby bodies, no signs of gravitational effects. Everything suggested as if it did not exist. For an object of such size, this seems an absolute physical paradox. How can one, for example, place a huge mountain next to a soccer ball and find that both exert the same attraction? In mathematics, such contradictions are not permissible. And, apparently, either this giant is made of a material that is much lighter in density and properties than any known substances, or its mass is significantly less than initially assumed. Abel Löb points out that the internal structure of this body must be almost hollow. He proposed a hypothesis that radically changes the conventional understanding of such objects. According to this theory, there should be a vast emptiness inside such a giant, with its shell being thin and strong. This idea challenges the common perception of interstellar bodies as solid, stone and ice-rich objects compressed under gravitational pressure. In space, based on existing models, objects traveling for millions of years between star systems should appear as sturdy clusters of ice and rock formed through long-term collisions and mergers. Suddenly, the idea arises of the existence of enormous hollow shells that must withstand radiation, extreme tidal forces, and impacts from micrometeoroids, all seemingly impossible. But the numbers and calculations. The problem faced by modern science is that alternative hypotheses, especially those suggesting the existence of unusual materials, also do not seem convincing. No known natural process has yet been able to produce such an object with extreme size, high strength, and minimal mass. Neither the most porous ice nor volatile compounds found in comets and meteorites come close to the characteristics observed in these mysterious bodies. The scientist named Löb himself describes this discrepancy with conventional knowledge as a hole in the common sense of modern physics. Encountering this fact has led the scientific community to split into two camps. Some attempt to find explanations within existing theories, asserting that uncertainties still exist and that small measurement errors could account for the anomalies. Others acknowledge that, despite possible inaccuracies, something inexplicable is indeed happening, raising serious questions. Especially surprising and troubling is the fact that a massive interstellar object, which passed at a distance of only a few million kilometers from Mars, behaves as if it is hollow inside, as if it was deliberately designed that way. In this context, the word deliberately designed sounds quite restrained, since it is not directly spoken in academic circles but implied. This very mystery became the subject of discussion. The reason is that one scientist named Löb, in the early 1800s, proposed the hypothesis that the mysterious object known as Oumuamua might be a fragment of extraterrestrial technology. He suggested that it could be, for example, a solar sail propelled by radiation pressure, an idea that at the time provoked irony and skepticism among colleagues. However, as new data emerged, such as from Trei and Atlas, many of those who were initially skeptical of the hypothesis began to refrain from making any comments. The recurring patterns observed in these objects demonstrate that such phenomena are not accidental. It was initially recorded that an object beyond the solar system exhibited an inexplicable acceleration, and then another body appeared, also anomalous by nature and possessing an incredible, seemingly dense structure. Both of these bodies were observed within a single generation of people, and both challenge the fundamental laws underlying modern cosmology and astronomy. Moreover, there is a very important detail that makes the situation even more complex and alarming. Recent measurements indicate the presence of temperature fluctuations inside these bodies, particularly in the object designated Trei, which repeat with almost regular periodicity. These internal thermal oscillations seem to be controlled, as if something inside is regulating the energy emission process. None of the known comets or asteroids in the solar system exhibit such behavior, making the situation even more mysterious. The scientist named Abel Löb speaks not of spacecraft or ancient civilizations, but of data obtained through observations. Yet, despite this, the data itself carries profound meaning. If the hypothesis of a hollow internal structure of the Trei object is indeed confirmed, and these internal changes are real, then a completely new category of structures in astronomy opens up before scientists. This is a structure that does not fit into any known natural processes, yet exhibits certain regularities. These patterns are becoming increasingly evident, and their repetitions are recorded at various boundaries of our observable universe. While observatories are carefully monitoring this object to determine its nature and origin, faint signals are beginning to appear elsewhere, much closer to Earth, in an area where such phenomena were previously not suspected. These signals have been detected by teams involved in launching rockets and satellites for NASA, as well as by other sources. Instead of previous attempts to tarnish the reputation of the scientist, as happened repeatedly during the famous Oumuamua incident, a certain part of the scientific community, engaged in the technical aspects of research, decided to take matters into their own hands and conduct an independent investigation. As part of this effort, data obtained from radar systems of the European Space Agency, infrared measurements made by the James Webb Telescope, and recordings from radio telescopes located in Australia were carefully compared. The goal was to test the hypothesis of gravitational anomalies near Mars, observed earlier in various studies. And the results confirmed the presence of unusual gravitational effects. A group of scientists representing the Max Planck Institute concluded that the discovered object, despite its significant mass, generates a gravitational field that is approximately 80% weaker than expected for its size. This indicated that processes occurring inside this body differ substantially from the natural phenomena we are familiar with. At the same time, an infrared spectrograph installed on the UBB satellite detected something astonishing. The surface of the object exhibited periodic temperature fluctuations ranging from about 15 to 120 degrees Celsius, with these oscillations occurring in regular 11-minute cycles. It should be emphasized that no known natural body within our solar system demonstrates such behavior. These patterns suggested the presence of some recurring internal mechanism within the object, possibly related to mechanical and energetic processes capable of evenly distributing heat across its surface. All of this seems particularly strange, as such effects are impossible for an interstellar rock that shows no signs of geological activity or internal movements characteristic of planets and moons. These discoveries reignited long-standing discussions concerning the role of consciousness observation in the very essence of physical reality. Professor Löb clearly expressed his view on this matter during a lecture at the University of Cambridge, emphasizing that the boundary between natural and artificial might be more blurred than commonly believed. He noted that until recently, such discussions were confined to laboratories, scientific journals, and theoretical reflections. However, a series of reports from various sources about observations at the edge of Earth's atmosphere are beginning to attract increasing attention from the public and specialists alike. For example, in March of this year, during the 24th year of the SpaceX rocket launch using a Falcon 9 rocket, backup thermal imaging cameras recorded a stationary spherical object at an altitude of about 90 kilometers. This object remained motionless for nearly 2 minutes, raising numerous questions among experts. All these recordings were archived, and although they were not publicly released, engineers involved in the launch confirmed the incident anonymously. Similar information was received from the European Space Agency. They have records of luminous formations appearing a few moments after rocket launches, moving against the wind and disappearing without a trace, leaving no thermal signatures. These phenomena raise serious questions because, according to experts, they cannot be explained by traditional technologies or known natural processes. Part 5 of 9. A particular focus was drawn by Dr. Giovanni Sansone's declarative comment, a former NASA engine consultant and expert in space research, who broke his silence for the first time in 2021. In an interview with Scientific Enquirer, she revealed that such phenomena recur both during manned and unmanned rocket launches. In her opinion, these manifestations seem to be a reaction to humanity's attempts to leave the confines of Earth. She emphasized that they are neither drones nor weather balloons. Upon seeing this document, Sanson deeply re-evaluated her many years of observations and technical records, which she previously considered obvious and unambiguous. During her study, she began to wonder, what if the phenomena occurring near rocket and spacecraft launch sites were not the result of rocket technology or technical errors? What if these strange manifestations are caused not by mystical or mysterious forces, but rather by human consciousness and its ability to influence physical reality through specific resonances that occur at the quantum level? Her reflections led to an idea: if consciousness can indeed influence material systems, as demonstrated by the famous double-slit experiment where it was proven that the observer affects the trajectory of particles, then collective focus of many people on a single goal or object could theoretically produce a noticeable signal or effect. Despite its provocative and unusual nature, this hypothesis finds support in a number of serious scientific studies conducted in recent years. For example, in 2022, scientists involved in the Global Consciousness Project at Princeton University discovered interesting and quite unexpected statistical anomalies in data from random number generators installed worldwide, exactly in 65 countries and regions. These generators were designed to produce essentially unpredictable results based on random physical processes and were used in various fields, from cryptography to scientific experiments. However, during periods of heightened public attention to certain events, such as spacecraft launches or during a total solar eclipse, they began to show patterns that could not have been anticipated and could not be explained by simple random fluctuations. At these moments, the results from these devices seemed to align with some internal harmony, creating the illusion of a collective imprint of mind or energy left by observers. Although these correlations do not directly prove the existence of intelligent beings observing us from space or other dimensions, they nevertheless point to an important and profound interaction between our consciousness, matter, and the surrounding universe. Perhaps everything is much more complex and intricately connected than what is taught in traditional science. Here again, the argument known as the third atlas comes to aid. If we assume that an object with a hollow structure, fixed in space and demonstrating stability along with characteristic thermal rhythms, truly crosses the solar system, then this could serve as evidence not of coincidence, but of deliberate design. And if there is a design, then there must be a specific purpose that this object or structure pursues. This opens new horizons not only for astronomy but also for understanding our human existence. Because if the universe is not an lifeless and indifferent stage, but rather a responsive system, even possessing a certain level of consciousness, then our scientific curiosity transforms into something more than just the pursuit of knowledge. It becomes a form of dialogue with this system. Every launched rocket, every telescope aimed at space can be perceived as a question posed to the universe, and what we receive in response, though not always explicitly, is still an answer. That is why a vast number of scientists and researchers continue to closely monitor the movements of such objects as the Third Atlas or similar structures. They want to understand, is this object merely a fragment of interstellar ice, or perhaps something more complex and deliberate, a kind of observational device created by an intelligence that comprehends and controls physical processes far deeper than we can imagine? Those who have reached this point and ponder the essence of everything happening share a common interest and internal anxiety, because the development of these studies could radically change our perception of the world and humanity's place in the universe. In the coming weeks, new reports and data are expected, which could completely overturn everything. Some believe that such phenomena are merely coincidental, statistical anomalies not worth taking seriously. However, for others, this becomes a troubling signal, a sign that something is beginning to notice our observations and respond to them. Soon, new images obtained with the James Webb Space Telescope may provide definitive confirmation of the origin of this mysterious phenomenon, revealing its nature and explaining where it came from. But if scientists like Löb are correct, then the Trei and Atlas might not just be an interstellar visitor, as it is traditionally perceived, rare and temporary. Perhaps it is something more significant, a watcher currently observing our planet, our civilization, everything happening on Earth. Throughout the history of science, there have been moments when scientists had to peer into the abyss of the unknown, into that very abyss where the answer to the fundamental question lies. Is there something beyond our understanding? The day Galileo first aimed his telescope at the sky marked the beginning of a new era, when humanity started to see beyond the boundaries of the familiar. Then came the moment when Einstein declared that space and time could bend, that gravity is a curvature of four-dimensional space. And later, the era of Heisenberg's discoveries, which showed that reality behaves differently depending on whether we observe it or not. These historical moments reminded us that the boundaries of knowledge are constantly expanding, and that our gaze into the abyss sometimes reveals entirely unexpected horizons. Now, everything seems similar. We are approaching another turning point, a moment when our conventional understanding of the world could change forever. The hypothesis of the object's pull is not just an intriguing astronomical curiosity, something to be set aside. On the contrary, it touches the very essence of our worldview, our philosophical and scientific picture of the universe. If this hypothesis is confirmed, we will have to accept an important conclusion. We are not merely observing the cosmos. We are part of it, and perhaps it is also observing us. Such an idea changes everything, our view of the universe and our place within it. Mathematical calculations conducted by a scientist named Abel Löb reveal something astonishing and deeply thought-provoking. Their results show that the density, rotation, and stability of the hypothetical object, Trei and Atlas, do not fit into any existing natural model. Internal thermal fluctuations indicate the presence of an organized energy source within this body, as if it is self-regulating, as if it possesses its own system of self-sufficiency. And its rotational oscillations, synchronized with observation periods, suggest that this body responds to our attention, to our observation. This is what particularly puzzles modern physicists, because science is capable of measuring, calculating, and predicting. Yet this reaction raises doubts and questions. When the universe seems to begin reacting to our efforts, to our observation, a question arises that goes beyond conventional mathematical models and physical laws. Who or what is hidden on the other side of this phenomenon? Behind technical reports and data, silence is growing, the very silence that usually precedes great scientific revolutions and discoveries. Space agencies and research institutes continue to update and transmit new data, but so far they have not provided definitive interpretations or explanations. In public scientific forums, the term intellectual anomaly is avoided, replaced by neutral expressions like phenomenon of low structural density. But behind closed doors, at special conferences and symposia, the situation is different. There, they discuss the possibility that modern technologies may have been created not by humans, but by some non-human civilizations operating on levels of reality that remain inaccessible to us. At the same time, Löb and Sansoni demonstrate to us how deep and widespread the idea of the interconnectedness between human attention and the universe itself can be. They show that this concept is not limited to our inner world or a narrow circle of personal observations, but can also pertain to the macrocosm, the vast, immense structure in which we live. The very process of searching, mental focus, attempts to understand and explore the surrounding space. All of this generates responses within the universe itself, as if each of our efforts to observe and comprehend the world evokes certain reactions in it. And if this is truly the case, then every telescope aimed at the endless sky becomes not just a tool for exploration, but a kind of silent dialogue with something that also looks into the past, into the same epoch as our observations. The greatness of this discovery lies in the fact that it forces civilization to reconsider its place in the boundless cosmos, its status among countless star systems. It is at this moment that exploration ceases to be purely scientific practice and transforms into spiritual and philosophical reflection, into a personal immersion into questions about the meaning of existence. Because the question arises not only about whether there are intelligent forms of life in space. The real question is whether the universe itself is inherently intelligent. This is the boundary that modern science still avoids crossing, for beyond it lies something much deeper and more mysterious. It is a realm where physics, consciousness, and reality begin to intertwine so tightly that the clear distinction between observer and observed disappears. The familiar division into subject and object vanishes, and a new domain emerges, where the very foundations of the nature of being are studied. This unique and complex area is thoroughly explored in the electronic book titled The Creator's Mind. It raises the question, does the universe possess consciousness? The author does not offer ready-made answers, rather, he opens doors to reflection and investigation. He shows how discoveries in quantum physics, neurobiology, and cosmology are converging towards the conclusion that perhaps our universe is not merely a mechanical machine or a set of random processes, but an expanding form of intelligence, of which we are an integral part, conscious fragments of a vast wholeness. If you wish to continue this fascinating exploration beyond the scope of this video, the link pinned in the comments, as well as the QR code displayed on the screen, provide access to additional materials. Because understanding the so-called three atlases is not just about studying astronomical bodies or cosmic structures. It is also about understanding ourselves, our roots, the origin of consciousness, the reasons for our existence, and what the cosmos is trying to tell us through all of this. Now, as the scientific community prepares for the moment when three atlases, or 3 ATS, reach the inner part of the solar system, an important and simultaneously troubling question arises. What will happen if we confirm their artificial origin? What will this say about our beliefs, the religions we follow, and the scientific theories upon which we build our future? Perhaps we are not the only civilization crying out into the void of space. Maybe we are just a young voice, recently heard in the infinite expanse, beginning for the first time to respond to the long-existing vibrations of consciousness. Perhaps we are part of an ancient universal speech that is only now starting to sound more clearly and loudly. If you have read this far, do not rush to leave, share your opinions and reflections. After all, the true debates about the future of humanity do not only take place at scientific conferences or within academic circles, they happen here, among people who still have the courage to doubt obvious truths and ask difficult questions. Ultimately, the mystery of the three atlases may lie not so much in what we have found in space, but in what space has discovered within us. And the most important and inspiring question that remains relevant to this day is simple in words but powerful in meaning.